individual is an everyday storyteller. You have a world of stories within you, and you owe it to the world to set them free. Every single occurrence in your life is yours, and you have to tell it your way. This is African Literature on the NTA, the largest television network in Africa. It's my pleasure to have you once again. Nena Basi is my name. Stay with us. The need to document life experiences is very important, as they are the lives we lived and the legacy we bequeath. This will form our focus on this edition.
In Africa, real events are recounted as stories to teach the younger generation wisdom or lessons about their origins. These stories sometimes stretch the truth to entertain the audience or make them reflect further. As literary devices, biography, autobiography, and memoirs are very important as they allow readers to learn about someone's story and history. Biography, autobiography, and memoir are the three main forms used to tell the story of a person's life. There are, however, similarities between these forms in terms of writing style and purpose. A biography is an informal narrative, an account of the lifestyle and history of an individual, written by someone who is not the subject of the biography. Memoirs refers to a written collection of a person's significant memories, written by the person. Autobiography, on the other hand, is the story of an individual's life, written by that individual. It is presented in a chronological format, with the focus on key events in the person's life. Since the writer is the subject of an autobiography, it is written in the first person and considered more subjective than objective, like a biography. Autobiographies are often written late in the person's life to present their life experiences, viewpoints, and so on across time. The Ambassador. An autobiography of Chikwado Rapheal Ezeokafor is an incredible record of the life and time of a man who emerged from nobody to somebody. The work is published posthumously by the author's children.
The book was just a reflection of who he was. He was a man that documented every detail of his life. I don't know, there's this jotter we keep, flip jotters. Daddy finished, I don't know, he said he had it every day. Anything that happens at the end of the day, he writes it down. Any important thing, information, messages he exchanged with people. If it's worthy of note, Daddy picks up, documents it. If he gets any new number, he documents every detail of his life. Any transaction, he keeps it. You understand? So Daddy was already a very detailed man.
The autobiography, the children confirm, is a reflection of who their father was.
Storyteller at heart. Like if you see, most people who know him already know some of the content of this book. Like if there's anybody who knows him, there's nobody reading this book who knows him there must be a content of that book that he must have narrated to you already. You know, he's always on WhatsApp messages, forwarding things. So everybody I talk to come across, oh yeah, they will tell me something. Even the priest described him. When you look at the picture in the front, when we had the funeral service, the priest would always talk about his smile. And you know, that picture really embodies that. So a lot of the things in that book, we've all heard those stories, and even down to the detail of the names of his bosses, his plate number for every car he ever rode, his first car he bought, his diplomatic car in London. You see all the plate numbers there, and those are recurring themes in our home. Even when I went to his office and saw the pictures of the directors of NEPC, all those names are household names at dinner.
Oh, I knew I've heard this
I'm like, I've heard this name, this name, this name. And writing the way he speaks, I can hear him while I'm reading the book.
Chikwado imbibed the need to acquire knowledge in his children and all that came in contact with him.
Daddy will know one word: education.
Education.
The moment you talk to daddy, he'll start asking you about
Education,
your education. Whether you went to
far?
primary school, secondary school, all of us, even when we finish bachelor's degree, you have to do master's, PhD. So anybody that knows him, even people in the hometown who aren't educated, if there's one thing they know about him, is education.
The title is drawn from a nickname he earned in his hometown for his meritorious service to humanity and not as a career diplomat.
Daddy was popularly called the ambassador. That's from the hometown, Izinifte, village where he comes from. Everyone that knows him there, they call him ambassador. They say, oh, let's go to ambassadors. The ambassador is back. Ambassador is around. So they call him an ambassador because he was. And if you look at the preface of the book, he actually added a place where he explained why the book was called The Ambassador. Okay, and he gave instances. He served Nigeria in London as a commercial attaché. So by that foreign service, he started the ambassador. After that, he proceeded to work with the UN in Uganda, so he was still the title of an ambassador. And he was one of the people that were educated, very educated people in my hometown. Okay, so they were like ambassadors of education.
Sir Chikwado started his career as a primary school teacher with first school leaving certificate and rose to an international consultant with the United Nations and finally as a practicing lawyer.
So he started as a teacher, with the basic first school leaving certificate. From there, he improved himself, went to teachers training college, and started teaching as a trained teacher. But the urge for education made him pursue university education. And after that, he said he wanted to leave the chief profession, and he read economics. So with that degree, they were one of the pioneer staff of the Nigeria Export Promotion Council that was established, I think, in 1978. They were one of the pioneer staff of that council. So from there, he was trained as an, I think in Finland, he was trained as an export marketer, promoter. So most of his career life, he worked promoting Nigerian export, Nigerian products abroad, So he did that for many years. He worked with Nigerian Export Promotion for almost 27 years.
Proper documentation and the desire to acquire education was the key to the successes of Sir Chikwado.
I mean, he's always had journals that he would keep at home, notepads. We all knew, and they weren't secret. We even knew where they were as kids. But he would always document on a daily basis everything he's doing. If you look at the book, he documented file numbers. Like, some places he talked about memos that were kept in the office, the exact pages that were documented. He documented his plate number, his first car that he had bought while in Lagos. While we're in UK, his diplomatic vehicle, and he would always refer to it that way. You could see that he was passionate about those things. So every single detail, even things that you don't think should be documented, he would always document them down. And that's something he was doing as if he knew he would have to use it for this book. Like when I think back and I'm like, did he have any premonition that he will need those? But he was doing all those very meticulously. And it was no surprise to us when you look at that kind of habit, that all instills into him as someone who cherished education. Like if you read throughout the book, you see he was having degrees from his 30s, 40s, did his PhD well into his 60s, did his law program called to the bar in his 70s, and did even computer IT programs. And I work in the technology industry, and I remember when he was telling me he was doing Cisco certifications for those in that industry. That's not a mean feat. He was doing all that while working. So, for someone that was that meticulous, it never surprised me when he always told us he wants to do the next academic program. So that's part of his character, as we've all seen. And like we said, he did all this in the pre-internet era and kept all that information. So it was just something that came to him naturally that I think we, even as his kids, we struggle to keep up even with that habit. But that was just his person, and he did it naturally.
The autobiography affords us a resource for diverse art forms and solution to our numerous societal issues.
There are stories here. He talked about his life as an orphan when his parents passed on, how he gave knocks and kudos to some people. There was an uncle he talked that he lived with, how the wife, they would starve him, beat him, for little excuses. That was like a knock on those ones maltreating a child. Then he also gave kudos to the people he now ran away to stay with, one of his other uncle, that the wife treated him very well, how he could go to school from there. So you see those contrasts. This story of that, is that what you want to write? It's in the book. You can draw it out from there. Is it the life of a teacher back then? There was a particular place he talked about why he left the teaching profession, the challenges of a teacher in those days. You have the story here. So there's so much you can draw from the book. Is it if you now come to factual things, what do we need to do about our educational system? I've seen it here. So I hope I'll have time to share some of the values I've seen in education in Daddy's book that I feel Nigeria can draw from. What works, what can work. I've seen it in this book, So you can still draw from that. He even talked about life as a public servant, the intricacies, the intrigues in office politics, and all that is documented in this book. So you can draw out a script from there. Is it to do again with chasing how he wooed my mother? Is it what's the word now? Wooed my mom.
He was a bit of a romantic.
In a village, how marriage was done in those days, how you need to do with woman. It's in this book, so you can actually draw out a script from there, right? Then he also talked about life, his volunteerism, his life as a Boy Scout, referee, school politics, how he was part of school, serving in school. Is there. Life of a volunteer. Everything is documented here. So there's so much you can talk about.
The theme of education ran through the work with lessons to be drawn.
The lessons I've seen from this book is on education, right? Now, like we've said, the theme that runs throughout this book has been education and the value on education. Because it was education that took him from low to high. That was what changed the trajectory of his life, right? So I started looking at the lessons that can be learned from education from this book, okay? And I see number one, when it comes to education, community has to be involved, right? Because after his parents passed on, it was the community that gave him a lot of these children, out of school children. What is causing it? Perhaps, where is the community? Where are the people that should be responsible for, where government can't do anything? What happens to the community? What role is the community playing? Somebody took him in, relations took him in, and ensure that the child is not on the streets, that he can still get some form of education. All right. Secondly, as a family there, we're now learning, how do you treat, because I'm seeing it there, how do you treat a child that is not your own? You learn that lesson from there. Education-wise, when he went into, like I said, he couldn't afford to go to a normal secondary school. He recorded it here that he wrote 2 exams, right? And he said they cost 5 shillings, right? To go into the best secondary schools in Anambra State. And that was CKC, and he called one Dennis Memorial Grammar School. He said he passed them all. He said, but I couldn't go because there was poverty. There was no one that could pay my school fees, okay? What did he do? There's always a different route. Some people make an excuse, nobody's there for me. He found another route where education is called. If I can't get admission at once, what else can you do? What other way can you went? There was an opportunity for teachers. Catholic schools were recruiting teachers, right? And they could pay. He became a teacher, right? Within the Catholic Church, and he was earning some form of money there that he was saving, right? So they trained him and he was teaching. While he was in that place, that was how he enrolled for London, what did he call it? I think there was a WAEC that is written by, it's the University of London, where he was actually a correspondence school. That's how he wrote WAEC and got his WAEC. Went further and wrote for A-levels because he wanted to get direct entry into the university, right? So he did that, right? And got, based on the savings he got from that route that he took in education, he got that and was able to write his WAEC, external WAEC, and got admission into the university. Now, at the time he got admission into the university, he had even married. So he said he didn't have the resources. Which brings us to, there are people that, most people get admission. What can be done about those that can't afford it? He mentioned in the book that government introduced Student Loans Board. That was in 1974, according to what he mentioned in this book. And there were loans that were being given to students, right? So he catched in on this. He applied for this loan. So that loan saw him throughout the remaining part of his university education. Not only that, that loan that he got as a student, because by then he was married to my mother. That loan, he used it to send my mother, because he married her as a primary school, just finishing primary school. And because he understood the value of education, he wanted her. He wasn't going alone and leaving his wife behind, and you now say village wife. So as he was climbing, he was pulling his wife. So he enrolled her, he told her to stay. That's why if you look at our gap, I'm 7 years older than him. So it was after he had me, he sent my mother back to school, right? So it was money from as a student, university student, that he also used it to enroll my mother to write WAEC, go to secondary school, go to teachers training college. So he took her through that part from that loan that he got. And from that same loan, he said he used it to, even when we were in primary school there, those of us that were already born, he was using it for our school fees. I don't even know what is happening to those kind of facilities for the Nigerian, higher institution.
Chikwado's son expresses his gratitude to his father for leaving them an inestimable treasure.
For this, no, I would thank him for this treasure. Because that's exactly what he left us. You know, some other treasures that people leave for their family can fade away. But this is a treasure that will stay. You know, I have a young daughter who's 4 years old, and you know, when I look at her, I always tell her, "You're gonna read this book when you're able to." And I witnessed maybe half of the things in the book what happened while I was alive. Most of the things that happened in the book, she wasn't alive, but she will be able to read and understand our family history, how we all came to be, and she can consume that. So I want to thank him sincerely on behalf of the family for this treasure he left for us as a family and for the society. Like my sister has touched on so many points.
Art's composition segment celebrates a man who captured and saved, documented and relived wondrous adventures of his life.
The Ambassador, an autobiography of Sir Chikwado Rapheal Ezeokafor, is a book born out of Sir Chikwado's inspiration from reading various autobiographies, and at age 77, decided to write the story of his life as a retiree from federal public service. The title, The Ambassador, is drawn out of several accomplishments of the author. He is the first person from his hometown, Ezinifite, Anambra State, to have served the federal government of Nigeria in various capacities outside the shores of the continent of Africa and beyond. He is nicknamed Ambassador in his town for his contributions in education of his people and other accomplishments. On this premise, his children felt it will only be wise to title his memoir by his nickname, The Ambassador. Sir Chikwado Rapheal Ezeokafor, born 20th March 1938 to late Nze Ezeokafor of Umuokwonna family in Umuagu, Ezeadaku village of Ezinifite, Agwata local government area of Anambra State, Nigeria, obtained his first school leaving certificate at St. Joseph Catholic School, Ekulobia in 1956. Sir Chikwado, after primary education as an orphan, had little or no choice to make in life as he lived in abject poverty. The choices were either to further his education and learn a trade, or go through a long, difficult, but ultimately fulfilling path of chasing knowledge, elevating himself, his family, and his fellow men. He chose the latter for good. Chikwado enrolled at the Preliminary Training Center, Obosi, after primary education to get a 1-year intensive course which will groom him to become a teacher. By January 1958, He was posted to St. Teresa's Catholic School, Umueze, Isuofia, as a qualified teacher. Sir Chikwado continued with his teaching career and his educational pursuit. In 1973, he got admitted on direct entry basis to study geography as one of the pioneer students of the University of Calabar. In October 1974, he took a transfer to the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, to study economics. Due to paucity of funds, he operated as an off-campus student until graduation in June 1977. The Students' Loan Scheme (SLS) by the federal government in 1974, meant for indigent students, came in handy for him and his immediate family during the period of his undergraduate studies at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. In 1978, he was offered employment by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, and through honesty, hard work, and God's favor, he rose to an enviable height in his career and retired as a deputy director in 2005 after 27 years of meritorious service. One of his top values include: if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward.
Do you want to emphasize your words in your poetry, prose, or drama? You want your words to remain memorable in the minds of your readers? Then here is a device to help you achieve that.
Polysyndeton is a type of literary device in which conjunctions are used in rapid succession of one another. This makes for a more rhythmic feel to a piece. Polysyndeton can also be seen as a form of figurative language in day-to-day conversation. It not only joins words, phrases, and clauses, which brings continuity in a sentence, but it acts also as a stylistic device. With the repletion of conjunctions in quick succession, it lays emphasis on the ideas the conjunctions connect. The word polysyndeton comes from the ancient Greek poly, meaning many, and syndeton, meaning bound together with. The technique of using polysyndeton is frequently without commas, which is normal practice in any other sentence. This deliberate insertion of conjunctions into a sentence is purposely to slow down the rhythm of prose, so as to produce an impressive solemn note or mood. Some of the coordinating conjunctions used by polysyndeton include and, or, but, and, nor. Types of polysyndeton: neither snow nor rain, nor gloom of night stays this courier. Boats and tanks and planes, kings and queens and generals. I came and I saw and I conquered. Importance of polysyndeton in literature. Writers use polysyndeton to create pauses in a sentence, allowing emphasis on each of the series of words or thoughts to show their importance. It creates a rhythmic cadence, speeding the tempo up and sometimes slowing it down. It makes a sentence more memorable by emphasizing each individual item in a list. It slows readers down so as to take in all the information intended.
It It's important we realize our stories matter. Only you have seen the world through your eye. It's your life. Tell your stories and make a mark. Here is the wise saying for today. Please let's reflect on them till next time. Remain blessed.